everyone. Just gonna give a second in case people are hopping on, and I'm gonna pull up the chat on my iPad and stuff. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have the Beetlejuice bag that I cut out 2 weeks ago, so I will be working on that for a little bit tonight. I don't plan on finishing it. I think last time it took about 3 hours when I sewed it on a live, so I only plan to sew for the hour tonight. I'm just waiting for it to catch up on my end here. All right, perfect. Hey Beth, how's it going? Alright, so the other night I knew I had the sandworm pulls when I was cutting it out, so I finally found them, so I definitely plan on using them tonight. Hi Arnetta, hi Crystal. I'm so happy to see you guys. I'm doing good today, thanks. Yeah, today was a good day. It was it felt like a nice fall day here in New York. Alright, so I'm gonna start with the front pocket on the crossbody. It's my favorite part where it just I feel like it's really good for panels and stuff. So I tend to start with that first. Hi Mary Lou, Martha Vineyard, beautiful. I have not been to Martha's Vineyard, though I grew up in Connecticut and New England. Definitely on the bucket list. So tonight my plan, if you're just hopping on, is I plan on working on the Beetlejuice bag that I cut out 2 weeks ago. I'm probably going to work on it for about an hour. That's kind of my goal with the Tuesday lives, an hour. So depending how far we get along, I am either going to do save the rest for next Tuesday, or I actually have a long weekend this weekend, so I might work on it this weekend as well, like a bonus live. And so I didn't put my zipper pull on. I prefer to baste my zippers in place and then add the lining and such. Or you can do it at the same time, but I find that it's less likely to curve on me if I do this, so. No worries, Crystal. It's funny, growing up, my sister is a Megan, Amanda was a really popular name, Ashley, so I take no offense. Plus my YouTube name, I have it as So Majestic. I don't have it as Amber, so no offense taken. And then Beth, I have to show you. I don't know if any of you use the Wizardry Stitchery thread. It's my favorite. I use their Text 35 on everything. So I'm using their Villainous variegated tonight. Hi, Gail. Aww. Yeah, growing up, I went to Block Island, which is technically a part of Rhode Island. That was really popular in summer and stuff, but never Martha's Vineyard. Hi, Liz. I'm so excited. So tonight I scheduled the live, but I didn't share the actual link in any of the groups or my own group because I was like, oh, last time the link didn't work and I had to restart. And tonight it worked perfectly. So I'm like, all right, awesome. So I'm so excited to see you guys all here. Are any of you sewing tonight, or what are you working on? And for this bag, you're gonna see me changing my feet out a lot between like the regular one, a zipper foot, and then when we get to the vinyl, I always switch to a Teflon. So Rochester is really far. I think Rochester, that is up near the Great Lakes, like closer to Niagara Falls area. And I'm in New York City. I want to say Rochester is probably almost like an 8-hour drive. Hi, Bethany. Oh, book besties. Birthday tote. Oh, that's a great gift. I love the book bestie. I like that it comes in so many different sizes, and I think the large size is just like great because then almost everything fits. You don't have to worry so much. And as a teacher, I don't know if you guys make like teacher gifts or even sell them at markets. I think book besties would be an awesome teacher gift. I love using up all my scraps. I save all my scraps. That might be like a bad thing, but if it's like an inch by an inch or bigger, and I've been using them like waterproof canvas scraps, I'll use like on the backing for rivets or snaps, anything like that, or like small pieces I'll use for quilting, or even this here for like the zipper tab tonight, that was cut off a super like scrappy piece that I had left. And if you guys see me like looking funny, I'm also streaming on TikTok as well. So I have 2 different ones going. And so for this, this was the cotton woven from Backstitch, and it was the panel I used over here, but this is their regular print. The stripes came from like leftover on a panel, and I actually used Wizard Stitchery's cotton fuse. I would say it's like a little bit thicker than a SF101, a little bit more sturdy. It's one of my favorite interfacings from one of the small fabric companies. I usually use that one or the SoFuse Plus from Castine Handcrafted. And especially because I'm not using any water resistant canvas or anything in this one here, it gives it a really nice structure. And honestly, I probably should iron this along the zipper, but I'm not going to. Oh, I grew up drinking coffee syrup. It is so funny that you say that about the coffee syrup, Gail, because Dunkin' just added coffee milk as an option for like your iced coffees or any coffee you could add it. And my boyfriend grew up here in New York and he never had it. He's like, this is so good. And I was like, yeah, at school lunch we used to have, would be like white milk, chocolate milk, or coffee milk. So it's really funny that you just mentioned that. Because where I grew up in Connecticut is right on the border of Rhode Island, like 5 minutes over. Wow, 3-inch half squares. Yeah. I used half square triangles to make a heart-shaped pillowcase. In the front, I did the heart in like different colors, and then did white as a border, and on the back I put Minky. and it's on my couch. I love how it turned out. I feel like with half square triangles, you can do a lot of fun things with them. I feel like this week I've been switching between like bags, quilts. I have a 4-day weekend this weekend because Thursday, Friday is Rosh Hashanah, so New York City schools have it off. So I definitely plan on trying to get a whole bunch of sewing in. So I'm gonna put my zipper pull on after. I know I showed the zipper tape before. This is the what we call the majestic teeth. I'm not sure how well the camera's picking it up, but it has like a slight shift depending on the lighting and whatnot. So you can see like this one is almost a bluish, this has like an orangish, reddish. So it's one of my favorite, and I always match it with gunmetal. I think it looks really nice with it. I had to lay out my pieces like right next to me with the pattern pieces themselves named, because I'm doing it actually, almost did it right now. I always want to grab the inside slip pocket piece instead of the front panel piece. I've made that mistake like numerous times. Then I'm cutting out some extras. So this is going to go on the left, and then our panel will be on the right. So that's what I'm adding now. And because it's cotton woven, it did shrink a little bit. I made sure that I pressed it first before doing the interfacing, so it's not wrinkled or anything, but I have some overhang on the edge I'm just going to trim off. And I'm not sure about you guys, if for bags, if it's not like an exact measurement where I have to like curl back my zipper tape or put a tab on, I always leave a little bit extra. That way I just have some wiggle room. I'm like double checking to make sure that I'm putting it on the correct way. It's funny, I feel like sewing, like prior to sewing, I feel like if you asked me, I'd be like, yeah, I learned like from like auditory, from listening, but sewing and following patterns, and especially videos, has really taught me how much I am like a visual learner. So sometimes I literally have to lay it out and pretend I'm like, okay, it's gonna open this way, so to make sure I'm doing everything correctly. I'm just adding the lining now for this one. So did any of you sell at like craft fairs or markets or anything? I know that here in the north with like the cooler weather, I feel like there's a lot more like fall festivals and craft fairs and such. I haven't done any this year. I usually do one or two back home where I grew up. I always do one for like in November, like a Christmas themed one. At first I switched out to my, or didn't switch out to my zipper foot. And if I leave my regular foot on, I can't get the full 3/8 inch seam allowance, so I had to switch it out. So if I fold this back, oh, this is funny. I didn't even notice it because this lining, I have one vertical and then one horizontal, but it's on the inside, so no one is going to really see it. So I'm not worried about that. It's so funny. With directional fabric, I always check it like a billion times if it's on the front or somewhere where it's really visual. I can't tell you how many times I've done something and I'm like, oh, it's upside down or sideways. And that took me like a really long time with quilting too. Especially I do the cotton cuts boxes and sometimes it will look, you know, directional, so you want to put it vertical, but the puzzle mystery quilt, you don't know how it's going to be put together. So that has taught me to kind of take it all with a grain of salt when it comes to quilting. Hi, Suze. I think Suze is watching on TikTok. And for this too, I left in a 9014 Microtex needle just because I am going to be going through vinyl, especially in a minute. So it's kind of thick for the cotton woven, but I haven't really found any issues with it. Alright, so that's going to be the front of the bag. And I need to add my zipper pull before I forget. I also like leaving the overhang of the zipper because you can put your pull on after, and if it doesn't go on evenly, it gives you a little bit of wiggle room to adjust that so you don't get that bubble. Alright, I'm so excited about the sandworm. I think that I bought them probably 2 years ago. I think it was from So Dulce. Almost positive that's where those pulls came from. And so when I'm making this bag, I prefer to do like the whole front side first and then the whole back side. This is our middle portion. So actually, before I put this on, I need my backing, my lining. So I'm just digging through my pieces here. And so this one, I did put fusible fleece on it. In the actual bag pattern, I recommended Decoville, and I still like the Decoville for the larger shoulder size. But since this is at a crossbody at 90%, and I don't mind that my crossbodies are a little, I don't want to say squishy, but I don't mind that they're not so structured. So I do have the cotton woven Geeky Fuse, or Geeky Fuse Soft, I think they call it, which is cotton, and then the fusible fleece. And then for this one, this is gonna be our backing behind this pocket. So I'm just lining it all up, and I'll just base stitch it around. And I'm just clipping enough to kind of hold it in place. And the nice thing about this particular part of the bag, there's quite a bit of wiggle room. So if it's not so like perfectly aligned, it's not a huge deal. For this, I'm just base stitching at like 1/8 of an inch going around. Oh, Beth. Yeah, I'm with panels too. I always triple check before I cut them out. I have such a bad habit of cutting off a head or the bottom. This one, I think I gave enough wiggle room that I think the words are gonna show. The bottom of his shoes might get blocked, but they're black anyway, so it kind of blends in with that stripe. If you have templates, like the clear templates, or even if you use like the Dollar Tree cutting mats to make your own, like that's super helpful with the panels. The only one I have templates for is my winter crescent bag. So for example, when I was cutting this one, I was like putting it down and like flipping it partway up, trying to gauge what part would be shown. But it's always the seam allowance that I forget to take into account. And like this one, I don't know if it's perfectly centered, but because there's no gusset, this will be turned at the side a little bit, so it won't be exactly center, but you'll still see it on the front. I think it will look fine. There's some bags that I love using panels for. A video that I want to make is for the Lucy backpack by Swoon, and I change it up. On that one, there's like the webbing goes right down the center of the flap of the backpack, and I actually like sewing that into the seam and putting a panel on that flap. I think it looks super nice. Oh, cat dad. That's funny. How many cats do you have, Liz? 6? Oh, wow. They must keep you busy. I had one, but he passed away in May of this year. He lived in New York with me for a really long time, but then during the summers, I would bring him home to Connecticut, and when I had roommates at the time, if I would go to work, he would like meow and cry. So he got to be best friends with my parents' dog. So he just passed away in May. He was, what, like 12? Yeah, 12, I think. No, 14, because I got him in 2012, but he was adopted. So a nice orange guy. I miss him. That's funny, Liz. I'm sure my dad is watching. He just hasn't said anything yet. But he's like the animal whisperer. He's always like, no more pets. And then they're like his favorite. But it's because he feeds them. Yeah. Back home in Connecticut, our animals always were like indoor, outdoor. Oh, see, my dad's on. He's deeply missed. Yeah, Stuart. He's buried in my parents' backyard. Dad helped me that day. But yeah, Dad's the animal whisperer. He always said no, but he's the first one. I'm just trimming. For the bottom panel and the top panel, they're vinyl. So what I did is, I find that the heat that you need to get stuff to stick to vinyl sometimes is so hot that with fusible fleece it doesn't always stick well. So I actually put the fusible fleece underneath and then put the Geeky Fuse over it. And I like doing that even for like Peltex stuff that doesn't or isn't fusible, foam, anything like that. I always put it underneath the smaller lining, or the thinner lining, I should say. Oh, binding a quilt. That is a hard task. That is not on my top of my list. That's why I think that's why I have so many unfinished like quilt tops. So I'm just placing this here because this is going to fold down. I did the vinyl for the bottom. But at the same exact time, I'm also going to attach the top vinyl. And this is the glow in the dark, which I'm super excited to see once the bag all comes together. And again, you can see, especially, like, it shifted a little bit when I was pressing them. But I don't worry if my interfacing shifts. Ugh, sorry, can't talk today. Shifts too much. I feel like with certain things in bag making, it can be very forgiving. I didn't realize that as like a new bag maker because I just, you didn't know any better. But as you go along, you realize like, oh, well, it's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect, or I can do this here and it will still work. I haven't mastered that or even began that with like clothes making yet. And quilting, I try not to stress about my points and stuff too much. Yeah, with clothes, I've just started. I've been making things for my niece, but I really need to learn like the adjustments and all that stuff for myself. definitely on my bucket list. I have like a closet full of cotton spandex or bamboo spandex prints, and some for my nieces, but I have a few set aside for myself that I can hopefully turn into some clothes someday. And it can kind of get a little bit thick where I'm sewing through right now. Because I'm using cotton woven, it's not so bad, but with the water resistant canvas and stuff, it can get even thicker. For these, I put my seams, the bottom down and then for the top facing up. But if you wanted to make it so your seams aren't so thick, you could even slice into your seam allowance and kind of open up that seam if you want. Oh, my watch hours, thank you so much, Liz, for asking. They've jumped up about 100 hours since last Tuesday. You guys have been so helpful joining in these Tuesday lives. They've been getting quite a few hours each one, and then I just put up, I'll roll and grab it. For the Hugo bag, I did a pattern, like the bat pattern, as a full-length tutorial last year as part of the Marathon Society, and I've been wanting to make a dragon bag. So I did a full-length tutorial about how I cut out all the pieces using my Cricut and then how to applique the face. And that one caught a lot of attention, so I really appreciate it. This I'm probably either going to sew up the rest, maybe a Tuesday night or a more structured tutorial. But yeah, I definitely, so with YouTube, you have to reach the hours within 365 days. So I definitely think I will reach them by the end of the year, like hopefully December, because what's happening is I've had my YouTube channel for over a year, so some of the hours are starting to fall off. So it's also that battle too. But yeah, I've noticed definitely growth with the YouTube, and even people joining like my Facebook group or following on the different social medias. So I really appreciate each and every one of you. Oh, Liz, I'm gonna have to join your channel. I didn't know that you do videos and stuff. Yeah, my hours were pretty low. Hi Terry. I have to say, being a part of the Marathon Society, doing the bag tutorials every month for them really helped boost me. And then just that kind of broke out and boosted it gave me a little confidence, like, okay, well, people are starting to watch the videos and enjoy them, so start going live, like, you know, you can do it. So yeah, I started to put the hours. Right, Beth? Yeah. I was so nervous to start doing the tutorials and the live for so long, but now, like, I mean, it's been a month straight now of me coming on Tuesdays, and it really, like, much more comfortable now. So I definitely think give it a chance and try it. Oh, Liz, when do you go live? I'll have to tune in. Do you have like a set schedule, or if so, let us know, because I definitely want to tune in. Elba, thank you. Yeah, these fabrics are from Backstitch, And honestly, I'm trying to top stitch this vinyl and I'm not sure. I just got my needle stuck. I'm gonna have to, I'm not sure if it's stuck with underneath or. I'm gonna check my bobbin and rethread it. It could just be because there's like a thickness. Sometimes the machine is finicky if like the left side is higher than the right, and that's what's happening with the seam allowance. Oh yeah, Liz, it definitely, like, Wednesdays would be great. I started going live, like I picked Tuesdays just because right now working out of the office, my remote day is Tuesday, so I don't have to commute or anything. I feel like it's just not as stressful to come on that day. It's also really helped me keep like consistency with my sewing too, having that set time. I'm just picking out these stitches. Thankfully this vinyl has like a texture to it, so I'm gonna make sure I go back through the same holes, but it's not going to be really noticeable because of that texture. It's actually I found this at Joann's in the remnant bin. I think it's from like a cosplay fabric, to be honest, but I absolutely love it. Oh wow, yeah, you're busy. Alright, I just rethreaded this. Hopefully it will work out. I have my Teflon foot and I usually use it for vinyl. Sometimes the only like bad thing about it is one side is thicker than another, so sometimes I feel like it doesn't like feed it through as evenly. And I feel like sometimes my regular foot is better for that. But then depending how hot it is in the room, sometimes the vinyl gets sticky, so. Working much better now. Oh wow, Liz, yeah. So I can't even imagine how busy. I do have the full-time job, but I don't have kids or anything like that I have to worry about schedules, and that throws a whole other wrench into it. Sewing on the Singer is great. Sometimes, like you saw, I had trouble getting the top stitch going where it doesn't always grab it as nicely. But once it does grab it, this machine has all the metal gears inside. So pretty much anything that can fit under the presser foot, it will sew through. So I'm super excited how that looks. And what's nice too, one of the reasons why I love using the variegated thread, like, I don't even know if you could tell because it's like purple, black, and then the green, so you really only see the green. It helps if your top stitching is not so perfect, and mine definitely isn't, so I really like that too. Now we'll do the top. This is where it gets a little bit more tricky because the stitches will show on this one if it doesn't work out. And another thing that I do with the top stitching is, I'll show you after, but there's a little, sometimes I'll start a little bit in the seam allowance. That way, if it doesn't catch right away, or it doesn't like get eaten on the end. I love sewing with glow-in-the-dark fabric. I don't really know how to describe the feeling, like the texture of it. But I think it sews really, really nicely. It's almost like, I almost want to say chalky, but it's not like it's gonna come off on your hand, but it has like that smooth feeling. So this is gonna be the front of the bag. So I'm gonna set it aside, and then I'll work on the back part, which it has a slip pocket. I'm just moving my pattern pieces out of the way. I was saying earlier that I accidentally sewed like the slip pocket instead of the front panel one time because the size is very similar. Alright, so this is going to be the slip pocket on the back, the front, and then the lining. So what I'm doing is I'm just sewing them right sides together and leaving the entire bottom open to turn it through, because that bottom opening is going to be hidden by the vinyl on the bottom. So I'm curious, if you're on and you actually, if you do sew on a domestic machine or industrial or like a semi-industrial? So far this machine has been really great for me. I would love like a cylinder arm, one day just to make it easier for bag making. But I gotta say, anything that I've really tried to do with this, it's gone through, unless I do stuff with like a ton of vinyl. Oh yeah, all vintage. It's domestic. Yeah, I really like showing the bag making on the domestic, because one of the things that makes me like sad when I see in some of the groups, I think my bobbin is getting low because look, it's catching again. But one of the things I see is like sometimes I feel like it's unintentional, but it's like, oh, you need an industrial to make nice bags. And it's like, no, you don't. You can do plenty with your domestic machines. You just need to know your machine and the materials that you are using. Yeah, Beth. See, I agree. Like, and you saw on a Juki, right? I believe. And that's what I love, because I can make my bags on this, and then I can also do the hems or quilting. Like it's so versatile. And I do use vinyl on bags. I just don't always. Usually they're not all vinyl. I'll mix it with cotton woven or canvas. Yeah, vintage is great. I I also think it's really, like, vintage is great if, you know, you're just starting out and you don't really want to spend a lot on machines. Like sometimes you can find them, you know, really affordable, or like this was from my aunt in the family. So, and like my opinion is like, whatever you have, just find what works for it. Like I was sewing on, you know, just a basic brother machine, and it's like, all right, well, I made bags on that, and they look fine too. I just, you know, use different materials. Yeah, Liz, I don't even know. The brother that I had was like well, it's my mom's, but it was like a LS something. But yeah, like exactly. Yeah, things are not. I always have. I try to get a mixture because I know a lot of people do use industrials now. So I always make them on mine, and I try to get like a range of testers and a range of materials. And I know some pattern designers are like more strict where they want their bag like made exactly to the pattern. And when I started making bags, like I needed to make them exactly like the pattern was written. But I also tell like all my testers, like change materials up, or you know, let me know if something works better or doesn't work. Because I think like everybody has access to different things, especially in all over the world. We have all different materials available to us. So I think it's more important about, you know, making sure that the patterns work over a variety of materials and variety of machines. I think the same thing with quilting too. Um, you know, like obviously there's always the like Berninas are praised, and I forgot the other brand. But to me, there's just so much joy in sewing itself that it's not about the brands or the materials. It's about being able to like, you know, create something so nice. So I'm just going, so this is going to get turned right sides facing out. So I'm just going to trim down the seam allowance, and I'm going to trim my corners at like an angle, so that way it turns better. Terry, this one it's a Singer 5528. I'm not sure, it's either from the late 70s or early 80s. I'm not sure the exact year. But all the gears inside are metal. There's a couple parts, like this part is plastic, but all this here, the arm that lifts off, everything else, like, and everything inside is all metal. I just have a garbage can near my feet, so that's what I'm trimming off right now. Especially with pockets, anything that really needs to be turned, I try to cut down that seam allowance just to make it sit more crisply. Hi, Dava. Oh, you're taking a class? What class are you taking? I'm just turning this, I'm gonna poke out the corners. And again, this is all cotton woven. I probably should iron it and make sure it's like super crisp, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna make sure it's as poked out as possible. Yeah, Dad. I actually, that one cutting video I did the other day, I had to set up my whole table all different because usually I literally drag my cutting mat into the living room, sit on the floor, and look like I have like a whole circle of all my fabrics and interfacing all around me. Yeah, I'll have to check because so my aunt told me that it was probably from the 70s, but I think like she still had the booklet, she had everything, and there was like a receipt for the table, and I think the table said the 80s, like 1980 or something. So it's definitely within those years. Yeah, Dava. That's the one downside. I can't imagine. I've never used an industrial, so I don't know how easy it is to thread or change out threads. But it definitely seems way more intimidating than a domestic machine. Yeah, the only time I ever really switch my thread is I use the Tex 35 for pretty much everything. For quilting, for the cotton cuts, they gave me some Aurifil thread that goes with it, so I've been using that for quilts. But that's the only time that I really switch it out. That and like my bobbin, it's set at like a perfect tension for the Tex 35 because the 35 is a little bit thicker than what you find at like a Joann's or just off the shelf usually. A pizza class? Oh my gosh, Davi, you're gonna make me hungry. I'm totally not laughing. I would take a pizza class. That sounds awesome. You'll have to post when you make it. I love seeing all your breads that you post. And I'm just doing a top stitch across the top here. Right, Terry? Like, that was gonna be making us all hungry. Alright, so now that I have that top stitch, so this, like I said, this is gonna be the pocket. I'm just gonna find and mark my centers. I like finding my centers after I fold this and top stitch it just to make sure that they do remain the center, especially if you know, my seam allowance isn't so perfect. And I'm just using a water soluble marker because I can see it on the back side. But for this one here, I also have this chalk pen. It's from Becky at Hannah Woodworking. It is literally like my favorite tool ever. So if you are interested, she makes like seam rippers, pens, stilettos, like all sorts of sewing tools. And it has like a built-in sharpener, and the pencil actually, I mean the chalk switches out and you can put a pencil, or you can put in like an actual writing pen. Because I love using chalk. I very rarely use anything else besides chalk or that blue water-soluble marking pen. Oh, and Delva, the 45 and 70 doesn't give you trouble with the domestic? I have a roll of the 45 from Wizardry Stitchery like above on the shelf up here, and I can use it in my top thread like through the needle, but not in the bobbin. I tried that and it was too hard to adjust tension. So I probably could get away, but then I'm like, oh, but then I have to either use a different color bobbin or, you know, buy like Tex 45 and Tex 35 because that would be me. I'll land on the hot stone. I have what is that? Pampered Chef. My friend did a party and I bought their pizza stone and it works really well. Alright, so I just lined up the centers. This is the other main panel piece, so it will be the inside, technically like the inside lining, but you're also gonna see the edges, and I thought it would be fun to give like a pop of glow in the dark on the side. Oh, that's great, Dava. Your bags always turn out stunning. I really love the train case that you made. And not just because you used our vinyl, but I really love the cork color. That was really beautiful. And so I started at the top and worked my way down. And then I used to just rotate and start at the bottom and work my way up. But I noticed that sometimes it shifts like just the slightest amount. So now I've started, like when I'm attaching slip pockets and stuff, starting in the same orientation. So if I start at the top, I start at the top at both sides, or vice versa. Which makes it a little bit tricky because now I need to like make sure this doesn't move, but still fit. Good night, Dad. Love you. I'll bug you tomorrow. Dava, I'm really happy to hear that. I love the way the smooth printed vinyl works. So now that I've attached both sides, I usually do a center stitch. So I'm gonna do that to split the the pocket. I almost said foam pocket because I use crossbody bags and I love having an outside pocket. Especially this will be the back, so it's against my body where I can easily like slip my phone in. But still have access to it to pull it out quickly if I want to use it or take pictures or any of that. Right, I'm just folding this in half, finding the centers again, because I'm going to use that center marking to draw a chalk line to be able to sew up the middle. Yeah, I'm just gonna grab a ruler. I love this Mormino ruler. It's like, what is that? A 6x8. And I use it all the time for like smaller things like this. I'm gonna use it to line up both the center marking points. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mark my chalk line and top stitch like a 1/4 inch on each side of it, like forming a box. And then the chalk just comes off so easy. And sometimes I put rivets in here to hold the pocket as well and to give it that decorative look. But I don't think I'm gonna add them on this one. I just use the chalk line as like my guidance in the little hole that's in the zipper foot. That's what I'm using to help line it up and keep my stitch length or stitch line straight. Alright, so now that pocket is attached, I did backstitch a little bit up at the top here just to make it a bit more secure. So I'm going to do the same thing we did on the other side to add the vinyl at the top and the bottom. No threads on your floor clothes. No. So this thread here, sometimes I get them on my clothes, but it depends. Usually it's a like frayed edge. I put all my trimmings into this cup. I have or like the thread trimmings. I have an idea to like use them in like a really fun artistic way. I haven't gotten to it yet. But yeah, as far as threads, they're all here. And then I'll put them in like a baggie or something. But yeah, I sometimes get the stray thread, or especially like if I'm doing cotton woven and the frayed edges, that will get all over. So this one gets a little bit thick here, especially on your pocket, because that's why I didn't sew the pocket closed in the bottom, because it's getting caught right now in this seam. I'm super excited for this bag. I've been hoarding the Beetlejuice fabric forever. This is perfect with the new movie, and then, you know, October right now, the Halloween season. I'm gonna add the top part before I top stitch this down here. This one can get a little bit funky because of the pocket here. So when I do the seam allowance, the 3/8 seam allowance, sometimes the presser foot wants to push it away a little bit. So if it's too much, I'll go a little bit less than 3/8 just to make it easy. I'm gonna I'm just gonna trim the interfacing on that one too. That's funny, Dava. Yeah, there's some, like, especially behind the machine, or if like things get stuck and it does like that like birds nesting, then I definitely have some. Or if I have to seam rip, the worst is like serger threads. That's when it becomes like chaos for me. But if I'm just trimming them as I go, then it's not too bad. So the next sewing marathon, I think I'm allowed to say, yeah, because it's kind of like promotion, so hopefully you guys will tune in and watch. We're doing the Greedy Clutch by Hollow Bag Creations, and they have different options for the flap. And we restocked our glow in the dark for the neon green and white. So my plan is to do, they have a spider web option. So I am going to be making the spider web with glow in the dark. I started cutting it out the other day to prepare to film the tutorial. So I'm really excited about that one too. Yeah, Beth. If you don't want to give it away, it's okay, but I'm curious, what are you doing, one of the flap add-ons, or are you doing the standard, like one of the, either the short or the longer flap? So now that I have both sewn on, I'm gonna top stitch these. Oh, the long version. I like the long version. That's one of my favorite things about the Marathon Society, and also just more people making video tutorials in general. Everybody does things differently, and I just love learning from everyone. Yeah, it's so true, Beth. Everybody, like, there are, like, different takes. There's different methods. And it's great because I've definitely had bags where I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot make this. I don't understand. But then I've seen a different video tutorial or whatnot, and it finally clicks. So I'm really happy to have those different options. Sometimes I have a really hard time following just a written only bag. Now I've gotten much better, but especially as a beginner, I could not follow it. Like, I had to have the video too, or at least like for certain parts. This vinyl is so thick that it's popping up. Usually lays flat. Yeah, Liz, the sewing marathon, send Beth a message. She's been helping coordinate. Because it would be cool. We definitely, I think it would be awesome to have more people sewing, and being consistent would be a great help. Alright, so this is the back side. The chalk line here, obviously with just like a wet paper towel, that will come off no problem. You can even leave this pocket like full length. On the shoulder bag size, I don't recommend that because it is so big it will like gape open. But because I did this one at 90%, it would be fine, especially because when this gets sewed together, it's gonna tighten it up even more. So I'm gonna set this one to the side, and then a little bit, well, about 15 minutes past an hour. But I'm gonna do one more thing. I'm gonna prep my zipper, and then I think stop there for tonight, and then I'll do the inside and putting the whole bag together either next Tuesday or on a live this weekend. And so for this one, I'm putting the zipper on first, and on one part of the zipper I put a zipper tab, and then the other half I bend it back. And I just need a ruler. So there's all different ways and methods to do your zipper tape. I prefer this one where I bend it back at like a 90, I think it's like a 90-degree angle. And I'm marking about 3/4 of an inch down just to give me that space to be able to clip it and pin it in place. Dalva, there's some, you have to look at different lives. Like there's one where I like knocked all this stuff off to the right of me. I've totally dropped scissors. Tonight it just happens to be going well. And so for what works for me is I marked the 2 marks on the side. It's in chalk, so it will come off, but if you don't use chalk, make sure it's in the seam allowance. And I bend it back like on itself on that line, and then pull up the teeth so it sits like that little mark sits right below the teeth, and it creates like a perfect 90-degree angle. Some people cut it and like burn it into place. If you've watched me long enough, you know that I don't like burning anything that's like synthetic, so I prefer to stitch it and hold it into place. It's so hard to see because I'm using a black zipper, but it forms like a little triangle here. So in order to stitch it into place, what I do is I put it underneath my presser foot first, and then I try to catch that triangle, like put my, like hand crank my needle down, and then remove my clip, and then put my zipper foot down. I find that tends to catch it. I know some people use like what they call the Butler method from Amy Butler, where like as you're sewing, you move that at a 90-degree angle. And I have found, personally, I cannot get it consistent. There's always like a diagonal or something, and I am too like finicky about it. So this is the way that works best for me, but I know there's definitely a few ways to do this part here. And then so what I do is I usually do one side at a time, just because it's easier to fit under my needle, but also sometimes it might shift a little bit, and that way I can adjust it, because you don't want one side of your teeth like higher than the other. tack it in place, like going forward and back stitching a couple times. That all gets hidden in your seam allowance, so it doesn't have to look pretty, just as long as it's being held. Some people even like hand tack it in place. I try to avoid any hand sewing at all costs. It is not pretty. Alright, so this will be the zipper on the top, and I'm also going to add a zipper tab. I've already folded it. It's just cotton woven. I didn't interface it, and I did mine 2 inches wide. I used to do 1 inch, but then I found that it doesn't always catch your zipper tape really well. So I started doing it a little bit wider just so it catches better. And this is like one of the few times where I do use the lighter. You can see it's like fraying a little bit, and I don't want that in that zipper tab. So I do melt that edge down here. And I always cut mine a little bit longer, and I don't trim that until I sew it into the bag. That's so I can catch the fabric better and try to do a nicer top stitch. And I top stitch from both sides. I top stitch from the left and the right. I found sometimes if I only do one, if you tug really hard, sometimes your zipper will start to come out, and I find that when I do 2, that doesn't happen. So the thread, it definitely, you're right, Donna, like it does have a thickness to it. So sometimes it does like spring and pop up out of it, but I've just been trying to tame it. I find I love the Tex 35. It's bonded polyester bonded. But I do have to hold it, especially like on the bobbin. It very much wants to like unwind. It took me a little bit to get used to, but like I said, now it's literally the only thing that I sew with, unless I'm like absolutely forced and I don't have like a matching color or something. Then I'll use like a Gutermann. It's funny too because I think it's kind of hidden on the camera angle on one of the versions, but I have the plastic cup for those threads, and then I literally just have my spool sitting in a coffee mug instead of a thread stand. Alright, so that makes our zipper for the top all prepped and ready to go. So I'm gonna call it a night there. If you didn't catch the first part, I'll just show you real quick. This was the back side of the bag. This is our front side. And then again, I have everything cut out here. The interior is gonna have a slip pocket and a matching zipper pocket, and we'll put it all together. So I really appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you if it's your first time. If you've been joining in on Tuesdays, it really means so much to me. I've really looked forward to it now. It's you've made me feel so much more comfortable on a live chatting with me. So thank you for that. Thank you for helping me get my hours up with YouTube as well. So I hope you guys have a good rest of the night. And I'll be in my Facebook group. You want to join, send some messages there, whatnot. And if not, hopefully I'll catch you in the next live. Thanks, Terry. I hope you guys have a good night. Bye.